Please be advised that this content is for mature audiences only. I have a message for you, Berkowitz. I see you. I see right through you and all of your bullshit. I know the truth. I know you see them, because I see them too. I've always been a cautious person. There are people who I associated with just prior to my capture, peers, family, neighbors, etc. After my arrest, they said, "I can't believe he's the killer." Well, if they could have read my mind and seen my thoughts, then they would have seen without a doubt that I was the son of Sam. David Berkowitz. Welcome everybody, Rosie here. Hey, I know I've been promising this video for a while, but I'm gonna be straight up with you. Going deep into the mind of Berkowitz has literally taken me into holes at least 3 times. I have so much information and research for you. I've put this video together 3 times and finally I just trashed it and I'm doing it over. I hope to bring you my thoughts and theories with true authenticity. I will be sharing video clips surmising some of my other videos which touch on this subject. So if you follow my channel, you know I have a few psych videos out there. I had started my Letters from Attica video couple months back. So I've been looking at writings, videos, analyzing Berkowitz's body language. I've been trying to go into his head, not trying, I've been in his head. And I promise you, it wasn't a good thing. But I'd like to try as best as I can to share my experience with you. So I ask for your patience. Everything that I'm showing you on this video will put the thesis into context. Some of it may be a little repetitive for you, but remember, sometimes we get a little something new when we review documentation or video, etc. So, please stay on topic. I truly believe that if the chat stays on topic, it would be most beneficial for all of the viewers. So we're going to begin with something that you may have seen if you joined us on movie night. We watched In His Own Words by David Berkowitz, and there's just one area that stuck out to me. I know that he's a liar, and that's okay. Where you feel David Berkowitz is lying, what I challenge you to do is look at his body language. Look at his eyes, see if he's moving a certain way. Start to get to know his baseline. He's a pretty good liar. And then you will get a better sense of what he's really trying to say. Remember, there's all these letters out, and I think that they are so important. I am over the moon that other people are looking at them and bringing them to the surface. I urge you again, I mentioned this in a video, please don't take those letters at face value. You have to read between the lines. He's telling you the story, but he's not giving it straight to you. You have to dig. You have to decide. But anyway, I don't want to ramble here because I will jump back on. Let's take a quick listen to that clip and then we could discuss it after.
Looking back, my birth mother would have never been able to give me all of the things that, not just material things, but just the attention, the time, and everything that my adoptive parents gave me. They were wonderful parents. And so I really consider myself a blessed person. At one time, I thought that my birth was a curse, that I didn't deserve to live. I had that death wish. I had self-destructive behavior patterns because of all the false guilt. And now I could see that I had the best of both worlds. I had two mothers who loved me. I had my mother Pearl and I had my mother Betty. And they were always by my side, even when I messed up. My adoptive mother Pearl died when I was 14, which was really set me off on a course even worse than I was, and it was kind of part of my downfall with truancy and running the streets and things like that. As a teenager, I was 14. And then, of course, after I was incarcerated, my birth mother died too, back in the 80s, and I missed them both very much. And I had the blessings of having two nice families. I had the Berkowitz family, and then I had my birth mother's family, my sister and my nieces, and I missed them and loved them very much. I'm long since out of contact and estranged with them because it's understandable. They just couldn't take what happened, and it was too much for them to deal with. I've lost everything. You know, coming in one physical sense, in an emotional sense, I lost everything coming to prison because other than my dad, my adoptive father, Nathan, was the only one who stuck with me all the years of incarceration, and he's passed away. And the other family, you know, they're all gone. So I mean, I paid a big price, but I'm living with hope now. And I really had the best of both worlds. I look back and see my childhood as overall a great experiences. In spite of the pain, there was great things, you know, running the streets. That's a lot of fun. The Bronx was filled with fun, you know, and I just, you know, thank God for the life that, I mean, I wish it turned out better. I wish these things never happened, but in spite of that, when I leave this earth, I'm leaving the earth with a lot of good memories, a lot of precious good memories. I had good times growing up in the pedaling my bike all over the place, Castle Hill, Classen Point, all the things that maybe people don't even know where that is. Well, yeah, Stratford Avenue was a great place to grow up. I lived in a 6th-floor tenement building, the top floor, and as I said, from my window as a kid, I could see for miles and miles all throughout the neighborhood, and a lot of great adventures, a lot of experiences. Yeah, it was a high crime area, wild area, but my parents made a home for me, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for everything that I experienced that was good. I experienced many good things in life. People would know that because they just focus on the crimes, but you know, I'm not going to allow my life to be defined by the crimes that happened during that very difficult time of my life when I was not in my right mind, and where I had other influences, people influencing me too, with the Satanism and things like that. You know, that was a tragic period. I was at a vulnerable time getting out of the Army, and all my friends that I knew before I went into the Army had all moved on, got married, so I was kind of like the odd man out. And I was just lonely and searching for my place in the world, and fell into a lot of hard times. But I'm a survivor. I mean, God has brought me all this way, and He didn't bring me all this way for nothing. And I believe that God had His hand on my life even before I was born. I may have been born out of wedlock. People make a big deal out of it. It's no big deal to me anymore because, as I said, I thank God for everything that happened to me because it's all worked out for the good in the long run. But God has given me, God knew I was coming one day, and He welcomed me into this world. So even if my birth father, Joe, didn't want me, God wanted me. And my birth father, Joe, didn't want me, God wanted me.
My birth father, Joe, didn't want me, God wanted me.
So what do you think? Were you able to see through some of the bullshit, and were you able to tap into some of the sections in that clip where he was being authentic? I thought it was really important to highlight what he was saying at the end. That was his last sentence of that interview. So even if my father didn't want me, even if my father didn't want me, I'm not even addressing the God wanted me. Even if my father didn't want me. So we talk loads about abandonment issues. We talk loads about Betty Broder. We talk about Pearl's death being a source of abandonment, if you will. But how often do we talk about Joseph Kleiman? I don't know about you, but what he was saying, at least in that section with regards to his biological father, that was real. Even if my father didn't want me. Okay, so this abandonment is so deep rooted. Adoption's very difficult, even to very well-adjusted people. He felt abandoned by his mom, but his biological mom. But he also believed that she was dead. So to some degree, it wasn't really abandonment. She died. She didn't really leave me. God took her. The father couldn't take care of him. I don't want to go too deep into the fantasy-prone disorder. We're going to touch on that later in this video. So he's feeling abandonment from the adoption. And I know some of you say, oh, he should feel blessed. He had 2 wonderful families. Of course. But we're not talking about a normal person. We're talking about David Berkowitz. Hello. So we have the abandonment from the adoption. We know there was something going on in terms of mental illness as a child. I don't think it was anything really serious. I think he probably had some ADHD, maybe a little bit of depression. I will say that in Dr. Abramson's book, he goes deep into the Freudian aspect. I won't go deep into that. What I will share is that David says that he learned around 7 that he was adopted. And according to medical professionals, 7, 8, 9, that's a pretty good age to tell a child they usually adjust well. But Nathan Berkowitz confirmed that David knew before 3. They put it out there. They didn't hide it from him. And then after it was exposed, they didn't talk about it much, unless David insisted. They really didn't talk about it. Now, according to what Dr. Abramson says, learning that young is not healthy. Those are the formative years, the bonding years, and it may be a source of why, although David shows gratitude to his adoptive family, even today, even more today rather, there may have been an issue where the bonding couldn't happen completely. And I'll share some more from that Abramson book with you that I think will really start to help put your own mind and your own theories in order. So abandonment is huge. And while we're discussing it, I'll just keep going. He did have friends. He had friends as a child. I saw his bar mitzvah pictures. He was dancing the twist with Pearl. We'll talk about the dance thing later. He was dancing with his mom. There were friends. There looked like there was family there. It wasn't an empty hall. So he did have friends. He had an interesting childhood. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Someone brought up the matzah crushing. He used to like to do sneaky little things. He would break things, he would steal things, and the thing that he loved was that he got away with it. You know, he loved his eyes, he loved his lips, because he was able to fool people. David loved that. But back to abandonment. So he had issues. I think they really started escalating for him when Pearl died. That was shortly after the bar mitzvah. And one of the reasons I believe the dance is a trigger few others, but that's one of them. He did make friends in Co-op City. You've heard from them. They've all discussed. He was a quiet guy, a little socially awkward, but he was a nice guy, and I tend to believe them. I think most of their account of David Berkowitz was spot on. But what happened? I say in my other video, David lived in a fantasy life as a child. He dreamed of what his biological parents were. He pictured Betty beautiful and just this, whatever he could make up in his mind. He didn't picture an ogre or mean lady or anything like that. He pictured this beautiful woman that was his mom, and he fantasized about what his dad was or how he was. Now put it into perspective. When he did finally meet his biological mother, by his own accounts, she was a nice lady, but he was disappointed. It wasn't that she was a bad person. It was that it wasn't the mother that he created in his head. And then he learns, and I'm jumping a little bit, but this is just the way it's coming out. He learns that the father on his birth certificate, Tony Falco, isn't his dad. That he took off with some other chick and hadn't been in Betty's life for a long time. Then he learns of this affair with Betty and Joseph and this double and triple life. And he learns that, he was more than likely either conceived as an accident or Betty was trying to bamboozle Joseph for like, hey, I'm pregnant now, what you gonna do? And we know how that ended up. So he feels like he was a mistake. Think about it. Think if you were in that situation, how would you feel? Now, I'm not sympathizing. I believe that David Berkowitz is a cold killer. He's a liar, and he deserves to be where he is. Remember, I'm just going into the mind. I'm trying to shed some light so that maybe we could understand what happened along the way, where so many kids have ADHD, a lot of people suffer from depression, high functioning mental illnesses, and they don't go out and shoot people. So what happened throughout his very short 24 years that he went from one way and it escalated all the way up to these horrible murders, these horrible crimes? I'll also present a little information as to why I feel in my heart that if certain situations may have been a little bit different, David may have turned out to be a little bit different. But again, I'm not sympathizing. He's a killer. Don't call me a Berkey lover, okay? Anyway, where was I? Abandonment. So we know that he wanted to be the center of attention. He joined auxiliary. He wanted to have a uniform. He wanted to have purpose. He wanted to be seen. And I see you, David. Anyhow, where the fuck was I? Okay, so that didn't all pan out exactly the way he wanted it, but he joins the military. Yeah, we know he did drugs. Most people do in the military, just FYI. Not everyone, don't come at me, but a lot of people do, especially when you're stationed somewhere where there's really nothing going on. There was a war on one end and he's stationed in Korea. But anyhow, we know he did drugs, but to all accounts, when he came out, he wasn't a junkie. So while I don't think that the drugs in the military helped in any way with whatever underlying high functioning medical condition he had, it definitely didn't help, but I don't think it was the tipping point or the boiling over point. It just helped exacerbate. I believe he went back into fantasy prone disorder strongly when he got out, or maybe during the military, but definitely hardcore when he got out. He had symptoms of it as a child. They subsided as he started having friends and fun experiences in the teen years. He had bad experience in the military, or disappointing in his own words. He comes out of the military. His friends have all moved on. Iris married. And let's step back for a moment. Iris was a baby crush. But when you read some of his letters to Iris, it sounds like they had this huge, big, serious relationship. I think it was 15 months or something, a young relationship. I don't even believe that they had sex. At least she said they didn't, whatever that means, but she said they didn't have sex. So it wasn't a real relationship, but in his head it was. He comes back, she's gone, abandonment. His friends have all moved on, more abandonment. They don't really want to have much to do with him, and that's on their account. They've stated that in interviews. Why? Because he was pushing the born again stuff, and he was weird, and they moved on with their lives. Well, he came back, I guess, expecting maybe to pick back up where he left off, and he didn't. Now, Nathan met Julia, married Julia, more abandonment. He lived with them a little bit, didn't work out. He claims, oh, she was wonderful, blah, blah, blah. There were issues, even if he says on the surface, and I'm not saying that she wasn't a nice person, I have no idea. I'm just telling you, he didn't like Julia in his dad's pad where Pearl was. Remember, Nathan said it was the only time he remembers seeing Berkowitz cry, and he cried madly when Pearl passed away. So now there's a new mummy in place, and I don't think he was really having it. And she came with her baggage too, and he wasn't having that. He was there a few months before he moved out on his own, and I believe he hit a stupor of loneliness, or a level of loneliness that, it made way to open up his fantasy life. But this time, when he was young, he's like, what can I get away with? I'm going to crush matzah, I'm going to break spaghetti, I'm going to steal money, I'm going to light little fires here and there. Now he's an adult, and he's starting to experience darkness. So all this abandonment has sunken him deeper into the abyss, the loneliness, the darkness. Now his fantasy life is going dark, and it continues to get darker and darker and darker. But that's just the bit. I know I went a little back and forth. Abandonment, huge role in these crimes. All right, we're going to take a little break here, and I'm going to give you a clip where I cover what I believe are some of the high-functioning mental illnesses that David suffered from. Be right back. Now let's spend a few moments talking about some of the mental conditions that I've been researching and I believe personally may apply to David Berkowitz. Let me note that I have discussed these with a client who is a psychoanalyst, and she has a prestigious business. Unfortunately, she does not wish to come on the screen, but she did very strongly recommend that I let you know that this is a speculation alert, and that without actually treating David Berkowitz, we cannot make a definitive diagnosis. David Berkowitz mentioned visiting a child psychologist every Saturday with his mother in Manhattan, and her name was Mrs. Softner. Unfortunately, I was unable to find anything on her in my research, and if you have any information, I'd be very grateful if you share that with me. he talked about possibly having ADHD, bad behavior, depression, many things, but without further information, it would really be hard to go deep into that. One disorder that I strongly feel David had was fantasy prone disorder. So I'm throwing some stuff out there for you, hoping that if you have interest, you may research a little bit more deeply. Well, just in a nutshell, the fantasy prone disorder is basically when you're living in your head more than you're living in reality. And if you are studying his psychiatric letters, you will see this in so many of the letters. One thing that stood out to me very strongly was David, as a child, fantasized very much about what his real mom and what his real dad were like. And I believe that this was something that he did all the time. And it makes so much sense. If you're a child and you know you were adopted, that you would think about your natural or your biological parents is more appropriate. You would think about them. But he talks about how in his mind, the way he visualized his mother's appearance, what his dad did, his father's appearance, and this is all before he knew anything about them. At this point, he believed that his mother was deceased. His biological mother had been deceased. She died in childbirth, and the father was off. He couldn't take care of him, and he was somewhere roaming the streets, living his life. So I believe that fantasy-prone disorder is something that we need to look at. Recently, I also put out a video on misophonia, and that is when sounds can really drive you crazy. I encourage you, if you haven't seen that video, go take a look at it. It definitely applied when it came to barking dogs. He was very annoyed by gum chewing, by people that talk too fast. He would get so annoyed at these sounds to a point where he literally felt like he was going crazy. And you'll learn in that video, if you go check it out afterward, that misophonia sometimes gets stronger as you get a little bit older. So that's definitely something that you may want to take a look at. I believe he definitely suffered from psychotic episodes and delusions. That is clearly stated in his writings, antisocial behavior, and malingering. And this is important. Here's where it touches on some of that theory that many people say, oh, he made it all up. Well, I don't believe he made it all up. Do I believe that he exaggerated it and made up for his convenience? Yes. I definitely believe that he suffered from a touch of malingering in addition to all of the other ailments that I believe he had. Again, think of this in terms of levels. And think about this. Not everyone who suffers from mental illness walks around the streets like a mad person. It's usually bubbling up inside. And I strongly believe that with David Berkowitz, the mental illnesses that he was affected by were all bubbling up inside. All right, let's get the chat cooking. What do you think of abandonment? Stay on topic, please. What did I miss, perhaps? Now, remember, I have like 50 billion pages of notes. I decided to go raw. The notes thing wasn't working. So that doesn't mean that I didn't refer prior, and I will again after. But what do you think in terms of abandonment being one of the main causes throughout David Berkowitz's life to the escalation of the crime spree? What do you think about that? Also, what do you think about what I put together? And that was already a little bit older. I have more notes on that I'll probably include in the next segment, but on the mental illnesses. Now, I will say a lot of people throw in schizophrenia. I'm struggling with that because there are signs. But if you have experience with that mental illness, most cases of schizophrenia really require monitored medication. It doesn't just poof, go away. And if you listen to him now, I mean, he doesn't sound schizophrenic to me unless, we only see the clips of what he wants us to see. Maybe we don't see some of the behind the scenes stuff. So I struggle with that, but please, I have an open mind. If you have something that you can share to sway me, because I want to throw it on that list, but I struggle with it. And that's why it's not on there. So anyhow, drop it in chat. What do you think about abandonment? And what do you think about possible mental illnesses suffered? Go at it. And I have a treat for you. As a treat, I'm going to read to you a letter from David to Nathan. Dad, although I'm your only son, you must admit we have never been close. Actually, it's all my fault. I mean, before I was just too stubborn and immature, Dad. I know I often hurt you, but I didn't know better. I didn't mean to do all the things I did because I've always loved you and Mommy. A grown man saying Mommy, that's telling. I just didn't know how to say it. I know I was adopted, but I'm grateful for you because you gave me all you could. The love you and Mom gave me was more than I ever deserved. Ain't that the truth? When you married Mary, Abramson's using a pseudonym, obviously it's Julia. I was very happy, although I never expressed it. Liar. I was cruel to her, that I believe. I don't know why. I'm really very, very grateful to her because she has given you a new life. After Mom died, you became a vegetable, Dad. I felt sorry for you because you didn't deserve it. Okay, so I can buy into that there's a little truthfulness there, just about maybe wishing some healing for his father. The rest, I don't know. I think it's rubbish. I'm glad that you enjoy life. You should, because you deserve it. You have really been a good father. You've worked hard and done your share. I just can't explain my ideas and philosophies to you. You wouldn't understand. It's all too deep. I feel like a saint sometimes. That's where the record goes, I guess I'm kind of one. Dad, believing in God is wonderful. Well, I'll make out okay. I got this thing called faith. To be honest with you, I have never really told you anything about myself. I really can't now, but just trust me, please. Everything's fine. Not really, in parens. I hope to see you soon. Just be happy, and please try to forget about me, Dad. Make believe you don't have a son, please. It's better this way, because we may not see each other for a long time. I hope things are okay in the store. I'm sorry that I can't live up to your expectations. I'm sorry that I'm nothing in society. That is, I feel sorry for you because you don't see my point. I'm happy with the way I see things. It's wonderful. You know, Dad, With you and Mary, Julia, together, you may as well be honest with yourself. You know you can be just as happy with yourselves without me around. I've been a burden to you all your life. Well, I won't be anymore. I've been too much trouble to you all along, and I'll even be more trouble with you now. So please, try to forget me, Dad. Please, it will be easier on you. I'm very content with my thoughts. Peace to you. Love to you. Love all of you. Sincerely, Dave. He wrote this while he was still in the military, not when he was incarcerated. So you see a tipping point coming there? He was already starting to have manic and evil thoughts. And he, I believe, loved his adoptive dad, Nathan. So he was already having thoughts. He was trying to disassociate at that point, but you can see it coming on there. So anyhow, we will move on. All right, guys, so yeah, I'm a sap. We're going to cut it there. I think I accomplished what I wanted to today. This is only part 1. There was no way. I was overwhelming myself thinking I needed to put out this 5-hour video. I mean, let's face it, most people find the psych stuff not that interesting. I love it. I love it. Anyhow, so here's a short piece. We covered the abandonment. We also talked about or reviewed what I had put out on the possible mental illnesses that plagued David Berkowitz. I hope that you enjoyed the raw style. I kind of like not fumbling through notes. And hey, pretty interesting letter, huh? From David to Nathan. If you want a copy of that, I'll copy it and I'll put it on my Facebook page. But hey, I think this video's gone long enough, so I'm going to leave it here. I hope that you enjoyed. As always, I appreciate you so much. For those of you that tune into my channel, for those of you that support me when I'm wigging out, I appreciate you so much. You have no idea. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. And until the next segment on triggers. Ciao.